Plato's had some internal organization changes, and the person who on your schedule is supposed to speak with us has been through the reorganization. Phil Charland is the new Kathy Bukowski. He's the new Vice President of Post-Secondary and Adult Education and Training. And Phil's going to talk to us today about Plato and things that are going on in Plato, etc. And I wanted to introduce him. But before I do that, I also wanted to just go over a couple of administrative things. And yesterday, you'll recall, we had the draws and the tickets and things like that. And I believe some of you have purchased 50/50 tickets, and Frankie isn't here this morning, so I'm sure she must be stuck in traffic or something, and will be here shortly. But at the end of our sessions this morning, the client presentation breakouts, if everybody comes back here to this room, and there will be a draw, for the draw will be made for the 50/50, so if you've got tickets and you want to win some money, come back to this room. And also, if you bring your evaluation forms for today, and everybody should have evaluation forms on your desk with pens and stuff from Plato, notepads, help yourself to that. If you fill out your evaluation forms, you will be entered into another draw, and I believe we have some really nice prizes. One is a 2010 Olympics Sterling pendant from Berks. And there was something else there too that was part of the draw. So that again is at the end of the second session this morning at noon. Come back here and we'll have the closing and the draws for the 50/50 and the other draws. Also, because the group is so small this morning, we're going to cancel the boardroom training events and just focus on the client presentations and have people make client presentation breakouts in this room in 206 and in 207. And is that everything I need to?
But if anybody had any burning questions on how to do something and needed help, just to seek me out.
Yeah, seek Crystal out either here or afterwards via phone and email, and we'll certainly make sure that we help you with any of your training questions.
If they need any instructions for CLPs, I have extras from the classes yesterday.
Okay.
Custom learning tasks, if you want instructions, I have that.
Okay. So at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Phil Charland. And Phil and I just met last night for the first time, but he's been with Plato for probably 6 or 7 years. 6 or 7 years now in a number of their different, in their K-12, so working with the K-12 schools in the U.S. as well as the post-secondary, and has previous experience with adult education and post-secondary as well. And I'll let Phil talk a little bit more about himself.
Yeah.
And
thanks,
I'm looking forward to your session.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I had a nice chance to meet a lot of you last night. Really enjoyed the conversations and just hearing what you're kind of doing within your programs. Again, Phil Charland, VP of Higher Education and National Accounts for Plato. I've been in this role for all of 48 hours. So, so needless to say, it's been a hectic week with Memorial Day, down in the U.S. on Monday. I had a 6 a.m. flight on Tuesday. I was down in Dallas for a couple days. Shot up here, but I want to thank Grant Escalon, his team. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to be here. Escalon and the work Grant has done. Really very considerable partnership for Plato, and just an honor to be here and have a chance to speak with all of you. Before I get rolling, one administrative thing, if you could just flip this over, make sure you mark a 5 there. Yeah, we'll be good to go. Presentation's definitely not about myself, but I just want to give you a little sense of who I am, kind of a little bit about my background. Live in Massachusetts, Norfolk, Massachusetts, which is a small town about halfway between Boston and Providence, Rhode Island. Grew up in upstate New York, real kind of rural area in upstate New York outside of Syracuse. Lovely wife, Andra. Yeah, got a guy from Portland here too. My wife, Andra, is a former elementary teacher. She currently stays at home with our 2 kids. Avery, who will be 4 in September, and Tyler, who will be 3 in November. Looking forward to getting back home to them tonight. Really into the outdoors, just in terms of personal pursuits, whitewater kayaking with the kids, do a lot of hiking. There's some extreme hiking with the kids over some boulders. Big sports fan. Celtics play tonight. Hopefully they can get a win against the Miami Heat. Played football in college, so a big football fan as well, New England Patriots fan. Started my career out of college. I had a psychology degree, had a lot of friends doing a variety of things. I had a father who spent 35 years at a community college. Before that, had worked with Navajos, on a Navajo reservation down in New Mexico, teaching really basic skills, or what you might call essential skills. So passionate about education, saw my father in education for his entire career. Had a great opportunity to go work at a boarding school over in Lugano, Switzerland. Thought I'd be there for a year, ended up spending 3 years there, also worked as athletic director there. Great experience for me. Came back to the U.S., worked for a few years in Boston with a consulting firm that focused on primarily the higher education market, provided market research and consulting both to institutions trying to grow programs, look at new market opportunities, but also to suppliers that were providing products and services into the market. And as Grant said, about 6 years ago, had a great opportunity to join PLATO. Have spent a majority of my career there, really more focused on the K-12 market, primarily in the U.S., mostly on the eastern side of the U.S. Great company. It's been a real great journey. Past couple of years, I've been a sales manager in our K-12 team, and again, about 48 hours ago, jumped over to our higher ed group, and real excited to be here. I was thinking last night about my Canadian connections. I got a couple of them. I had my first beer in Quebec City. The problem was that I was only 13 years old. A French club trip from my high school headed up there. First girlfriend out of college was Canadian, London, Ontario. Really one of my first professional mentors at the American School in Switzerland, Canadian. And finally, my son Ty, actually named after a very good friend who was Canadian, died in a tragic snowboarding accident over in Switzerland. So a few connections there, but definitely glad to be up here. Never been to Vancouver, just disappointed I'll only be here one night. For today, I really want to talk just high level about the Escalon and PLATO partnership, real briefly around globalization of essential skills. You guys could all really talk to me about what essential skills are, the good work that you're doing. Just want to kind of put some of what I'm going to talk about more around PLATO in context. And certainly a bulk of today will kind of talk about where PLATO came from, where we are today. It's a really exciting time. Acquisitions, a lot of product development, and also talk to you about where we're headed, which I think is really exciting. And I want to make sure we have time for questions too. I know a lot of you had some great feedback for me last night, questions, and look forward to kind of continuing that dialogue here today. So some of you might know Grant had a really rich career with PLATO, I think close to 30 years, overseeing a variety of divisions, not just the Canadian business, which this kind of says, but I know did some work down in the US as well. PLATO kind of had a different name back then. Grant could probably inform me of a little bit more about the history there. 2006, I believe, Escalon was launched, and yeah, we've had a really strong, now 6-year plus partnership, and we look forward to continuing that for many years to come. The good work that he's doing, really localizing and contextualizing PLATO for the Canadian market is incredible. Something that we to date have had obviously a little bit more focus on the U.S. market, and so just proud of what he's doing. Glad that he's able to kind of expand our reach to your learners and to your instructors and so forth. PLATO's vision, we provide market-leading online solutions for learner achievement, really inspired solutions for teaching and learning. Work with K through adult learners, a lot of different types of programs. Talk a little bit more specifically about some of those programs in a bit. Matches well, I think, with Escalon's vision. Very similar mission. Obviously, PLATO's just one tool that they're using, hopefully an important one, but I think as we'll talk about in a few minutes, it's not just the curriculum, it's not just the product. Hopefully, and I believe PLATO's a real good one, but it's really about the people, it's about the programs, it's about how do you establish your program, facilitate, have those relationships to really make that tool work. Obviously, just thinking about globalization of essential skills, unskilled jobs are quickly disappearing. With globalization, kind of the separation, country to country, but within any country, really folks that have skills and those that don't, in terms of job potential, income potential, becoming increasingly so more and more important. around specialization of training for, for career and opportunities in the workforce. Through 2014, 45% of all job openings will require an associate's degree or certification of apprenticeship. 33%, bachelor's degree or above. And only 22% of job openings really able to be filled by a high school, folks with only a high school diploma. So obviously, a high school diploma means less today than it meant decades ago. The need to kind of continue and further both the skills but educational opportunities for all students, especially those maybe at risk, those in underserved populations, those that, regardless of the country, may slip through the cracks at times. I know you guys are doing some great work there to push the ball forward for the populations that you work with and really expand their horizons, their opportunities. Relevancy is so important, and it's exciting to see the shift in education right now from more traditional kind of rote memorization, teacher driving all of the instruction. Quick study, a high school dropout showed 81% believed, if there were real world context, relevance around their education, probably would have encouraged them to finish. Traditional models of education, brick and mortar, teacher-led textbooks, sage on the stage delivery, doesn't work for a lot of kids and a lot of adults, hasn't for a long time. So thinking about how we can personalize instruction, make it more relevant, really contextualize it for each learner. I don't know how many of you have looked at Bill Daggett is a pretty well-known kind of global research around education, well-known for his rigor and relevance framework. Just a lot of text on the screen here, but just a little bit of research around, it's not just the academic component, but it's kind of that career and technical education component as well. How do you kind of fuse those two things to bring that rigor and relevance together, again, to make connections for learners that otherwise might not be made. I think the great thing is Escalon, the work that Grant and his team do, they're really providing, via PLATO, kind of that relevancy and rigor. So whether it's kind of the customized alignments, really working with PLATO to massage it so that it is better aligned to kind of the needs of the programs that you're working with, really important. Some tools in terms of the standards browser, at least for Ontario, in terms of alignment to skills correlation. This is an area hopefully we'll continue to evolve, both through the work that Escalon's doing, but also PLATO's commitment to the Canadian market and to all of the work that you're doing. Just looking for, and we're very, very open to feedback from you. How can we make this tool better? How can we make it a better fit? What types of investments can we make to make some of the hard work that Grant and his team do a little bit easier, so that there's perhaps some kind of pre-built tools from PLATO that maybe better meet your needs. Just a little bit about PLATO. For those of you that don't know, actually came out of a 1963 National Science Foundation grant, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. PLATO, has taken a lot of different forms over the years. We're currently, this is headquartered in Bloomington. We now also have an office down in Dallas. Work with quite a few learners, as I mentioned, K through adult. Over 2 million students, rapidly growing every day. Pretty exciting, work that we're doing. About 280 employees, so we're growing rapidly. A little bit about our heritage. I mentioned kind of the National Science Foundation grant, university-based. Just a quick snapshot of kind of an old PLATO terminal. You can see, fortunately, we've improved our graphics a little bit, but many of you may know PLATO from 60s, 70s. Did a lot of different work in terms of building skills for various disciplines. really used to stand, and we don't use the acronym as much or kind of represent that as much, but program logic for automated teaching operations. I think the important thing to note there, we're not trying to replace teachers. We're trying to be an important 21st century tool for teachers and for learners. Again, it's that human element that's so important. But yeah, I thought cool
Phil,
just to...
the scary part is I remember that lesson.
Do you really?
It's called Zero Distill, and it was, at the time it was amazing because it was animation and it was, learners could change temperatures, change the things that they were distilling, and it was like a totally interactive experiment that on the computer, that was back in the 70s, late 70s.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Grant. The other thing, if you get a chance, go out to Wikipedia, throw Plato or Plato Learning in. The history is actually extremely fascinating. To Grant's point, really pioneered touchscreen technology back in the 70s, social networking, social gaming, things, really looking at Facebook today and other social media. Really Plato or that version of Plato, really the first stab at some of those social elements using technology. So pretty rich history. We've obviously evolved over the years. But
The first texting was Term Talk. The first email was P-Notes, Plato Notes.
okay.
All of that stuff came from Plato and evolved out of that.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to picking Grant's brain at another time to really get even more of that background. With 30 years there, he's obviously got a lot of knowledge about that.
He's a dinosaur.
Yeah, just quickly,
Are you the
originally,
younger sister, I take it?
It's not 30 years, it's only 5, but I read a lot.
originally back in the 60s, a little more focus on science and technology education, kind of post-Sputnik. There was a real thrust in the U.S. around science and math education, hence that National Science Foundation grant. Today, really focused on, I think, two primary areas. Really, most of what we do is fusing those two together, but engaging rigorous curriculum. So that digital curriculum that a lot of you are familiar with, a lot of interaction for learners. There's a lot of definitions of online learning right now, whether in the adult market or K-12. A lot of it, unfortunately, is text on a screen. It's essentially taking a page from a textbook and throwing it onto a computer. That's not what Plato is. Hopefully you've seen that. A lot of interactions for a learner, or for learners. Over 250 courses, a lot of just supplemental curriculum, so about 10,000 hours of research-based curriculum. We also focus quite a bit on assessments. So there are a lot of assessment tools out there. What's important to us is really being able to bridge that gap between assessment and curriculum to personalized instruction. So how do you pinpoint what a student knows and doesn't know, and very quickly, efficiently deliver the instruction that they need to build those skills and move them forward. So those are kind of two core areas that we're focused on. This is helpful for some people. Really everything that we do, and there's a big buzz, at least in the U.S., on the term college and career readiness. Cool thing is Plato's been doing that for decades, really trying to support learners, college and career. These are really the 14 primary solutions or primary ways that I'd say we're working with government agencies, not-for-profits, colleges, K-12 institutions, a lot of work around developmental education, workforce readiness, our term more adult basic education, I think you guys probably refer to as essential skills. I think if you looked back 6 years ago, 10 years ago, really our sweet spot was more that at-risk student. That's still something critical to us. We've kind of started to move up the food chain a little bit to more advanced courses as well, so things like calculus, physics, higher level, college level courses. So really just trying to round out the breadth so that we can support really all learners, those that are maybe behind in terms of skills on skill level, or those that are more advanced. Professional development, obviously Grant's team comes into play there. So critical to what we do. It's not just a product. It's a lot of nuances to it, a lot of things that you can do with it. I think pretty robust, but having not just the right training, but really the right program design, being able to leverage things like reports to really drive other instructional decisions, so critical. And we're pleased to have Escalon kind of really focus on that piece for us up here as well, and ensure that all of you are having success within your programs. I mentioned some of these things. One of the things we also pride ourselves on is the research base. So, Grant can probably speak to this too, but whether it was decades ago, the research that went into the development of the PLATO system, but today have really reinvested in a lot of third-party efficacy research, both with adult learners as well as K-12, to really ensure that the solutions, the programs that we're bringing to all of you, that they work, and that more than just PLATO saying it, or even our clients, that we can really validate that, use data to make sure that we're moving things forward. A few screenshots. Real focus too within PLATO on 21st century skills, and what I mean by that is really simply put, higher level thinking skills. So thinking about Bloom's taxonomy, how do you get synthesis, application, some of those higher levels. There are a lot of online programs out there that are really kind of drill and kill instruction, just about rote memorization. While there's some pieces of kind of automaticity within PLATO. We've done a lot of work to put some tools in for more peer-to-peer communication, things to give you guys opportunities to actually integrate your own curriculum materials, to create more writing assignments, project-based learning. A lot of that built into our curriculum, but also, like I said, flexibility to add that, to customize that on your own as well. And as I just said, I think, like we talked about earlier, the ability to customize PLATO, you can use it kind of out of the box. There's some programs that we have that I think are very easy to start using quickly, don't require a lot of customization, but the ability to customize is really endless. And it's always exciting to kind of get into programs and see what they've done with PLATO, how they've resequenced PLATO, how they've added their own curriculum, and just how they're using it. I was talking to someone last night who uses it a lot for more teacher-led instruction. So like this, might have a piece of PLATO, up on a screen with a projector, doing some small group instruction. A lot of times we only think of that kind of, one student, one computer type work, but there are a lot of creative ways to customize the use and actually customize the curriculum as well. Just a few screenshots. A couple of our newer courses, Advanced Calculus and Physics. We've won a bunch of awards, which we're proud of, but I won't spend too much time talking about those. You can see, with PLATO Physics, pretty cool. You have an exercise there, kind of plotting a graph, the arc of a snowboarder. So again, relevance, things that kids can get interested in, engage with, but also rigorous in terms of the actual academic skills that they're applying to that. And hopefully you'll see that throughout PLATO's curriculum. I mentioned earlier, a lot of interactions, so try not to be a passive experience for a learner. Try to have a lot of ways to actually engage that student, ensure that they're engaged with the instruction. So we pride ourselves on really scanning the market and ensuring we have as many interactions for a learner as possible, so that it's not a passive learning experience, so that it's not just clicking through, reading, listening, but there's actually interaction. That kinesthetic component, not just for children, but I think for adults, critically important. Really important to have that in the curriculum to make sure that they are, very engaged with that instruction. Had some good conversations last night about what makes a PLATO program, or just a program using PLATO, run successfully. And there are so many things beyond the product, I think, that are probably more important, frankly. I think I would say to people, a poor product implemented well is better than a great product implemented poorly. And I think these 6 key things are, in my mind, so critical to not only getting off the ground, on the right foot, but really ensuring that you have continuous improvement with your program. So thinking about just the overall program design, what are your goals? Specifically, how are you going to implement PLATO? What are the accountabilities? What are the staffing models? What are the expectations for students? How are you setting those up? How are you monitoring progress? How are you ensuring that students know that you're monitoring progress? The personnel or the people part, most important. I was talking with Grant and someone else last night, and PLATO Lab, where someone's, the instructor or staff members over in the corner reading the newspaper, at their desk thinking something magical will happen. That's tough to have a good implementation there. I think what's so powerful about a tool like PLATO, it allows a staff member, teacher, to really differentiate the instruction, work with the students, have a research-based curriculum where students can work, but you can then provide that one-to-one or small group instruction, I think, more effectively. You can facilitate the instruction instead of having to deliver all of the instruction. These other things I think are real important, even just thinking about how do you design your lab? Is there workspace for kind of offline work? And then how do you evaluate progress? Do you have, whether it's PLATO's reports, other indicators, are you making progress? Is this tool actually effective as part of your program? And how do you make it more effective? I've delivered entire presentations just on kind of this piece here. I'd be happy to share some of that information with Grant, but I think these are the things that we really try to work with our clients on as well, just to ensure fidelity to implementation, make sure that we're providing the consulting, the training, the professional development to ensure that well beyond product, these things are really following best practices and make sure that we do that in a tailored and customized way. Because at the end of the day, there is no one-size-fits-all model. Every program's unique, has different goals, and we try to make sure that as we set up and continue to support programs that we're focused on that. I want to just talk quickly about some of the highlights, product enhancements from the past couple of years. It's kind of interesting. Post-secondary for us, or higher education, adult market, just jumped onto our flagship learning management system, which we use a lot of acronyms at PLATO, as you can probably tell. PLATO Learning Environment. So I think there may be a few folks in the room still on PLATO Web Learning Network. PLE is our management system of the future. All of our investments going into that. A lot of functionality that we're adding. Things like reader support tools. So I don't know if you guys, any of you are using those, but some tools to kind of translate text are embedded in there. A lot of kind of back-end technology, and frankly, API and SSO, if there's anyone technologically savvy in the room. Single sign-on, which is the ability, for example, if you're using Angel or Blackboard or another LMS, to be able to kind of embed our management system with single sign-on, so they sign into that management system and would automatically be signed into PLE, kind of embedded into a different management system. So some tools there, kind of back-end technology. API, and pardon me, I can't actually remember what the acronym stands for, but really the ability to have more communication in terms of student performance data between PLE and, say, a student information system. So instead of having to manually extract that data into Excel form and then throw it into another system, a lot of work there. New assessment products. I think some of you are using AccuSess within your programs. For those of you maybe that aren't, I'll just talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Tons of new reports. Reports an area, we've got a lot of feedback from clients. This report's good, but it's not exactly what I need, or you know what, you don't even have the report that I really need. I heard that last night. One thing I'll say, really nimble about getting that feedback and making changes. Sometimes things are slightly lower on the priority list, but we take our clients' feedback really seriously. Almost all of these enhancements came from feedback from our clients, and we've kind of got some mechanisms internally to get that feedback to the people that matter on our executive team and get those things integrated. Also a great, relatively recent partnership about a year ago with Middlebury Interactive Languages, so offer I think about 23, 24 global languages as well. And also, I'm trying to think, I think they're a British Columbia-based company, eDynamics Learning. I know they're Canadian, I'm not sure exactly where they're located. Just struck a great partnership around electives with them. They're an elective provider, so things like forensics, personal finance, a handful of kind of other disciplines kind of outside of the core academic areas, but some really, really cool courses from them. with PLE, and this will look familiar to a lot of you, as you transition, or if you have from PLATO Web Learning Network to PLE, really, trying to constantly evolve the interface to make it more intuitive. And one of the challenges, like I said, robust system, there's a lot that you can do. We're trying to reduce the number of clicks it takes you as an administrator, instructor, but also for the student to make it more intuitive. Certainly there's still room for progress, and we're real open to kind of, like I said, hearing what we could do better in terms of the design of the product. But you'll see kind of mini apps up at the top. These are your most commonly kind of used functions within PLATO. So things like setting up classes, finding curriculum or content that you need, reports, and then some of the communication tools, whether it's communicating with a student, setting up some of that threaded discussion possibly for question of the week, question of the day, to see some of that interactive communication between students as well. I talked about it earlier, but this is just a screenshot of kind of how you might customize a piece of PLATO. There's a tool within PLE to kind of resequence, add your own curriculum. So you'll see can add external websites. We do a lot of that in our project-based learning, but if there are great educational websites, I heard somebody last night say they like Khan Academy. I mean, there's different tools, different websites that you can embed within PLATO, create those assignments. Documents, you might have offline worksheets or other things you want to upload into PLATO. You have the ability to do that. And then, we've added, I mentioned threaded discussion, but also digital Dropbox. So if a student completes a written assignment, they, instead of having to, like you had to do a couple years ago with PLATO, print it out, pass it in paper-based, you can actually digitally upload the document. I'll talk in a minute. We're actually moving towards kind of more of a portfolio-based approach too within the system. So a lot of that digital work will kind of remain with the student, be able to be tracked longitudinally over time. Reporting, real important to what we do. That engagement of curriculum for the student so important, but then the accountability piece. How do you, as a staff member, teacher, really track, monitor student progress, and then really be able to make data-driven decisions. So data-driven decisions that go, I think, well beyond PLATO, but just instructionally, whether it's assessment reporting, time on task data, seeing how many attempts at a mastery test it might take a student to achieve mastery. A lot of useful data there. I think, in terms of getting to know PLATO and getting to use it, reports, there are many of them there. Sometimes challenging to know, what is this actually showing me? We've tried to really make sure that our support site has more tools for you to go back and kind of review. All right, I haven't used this report. Here's a quick 5-minute overview for me as a instructor to kind of get a snapshot of what that is and how to use it. So data and reports are real important to what we do. You're going to see a real evolution here over the next couple of years. We know there are some key reports that we need to build out. We'd love your feedback too. If there are, and I'm guessing there are, some reports that maybe would be helpful to your programs, definitely pass that along to the Escalon team, and we'll be in continuous conversation, get that feedback, get it in our queue for development, and hopefully get you guys what you need. Here's just an example. This might look familiar to some of you, our curriculum strengths and needs by class, where you can kind of create customized categories with different cut scores, and then see, based on particular skill area for this one student, kind of see where they partially meet standards or exceed standards. Those can be customized to language that fits for your program, cut scores that make sense. But that's kind of one example of an assessment report that we have. This is more, I think, for 2 different learners. So similar type of report, but curriculum strengths and needs by class. So only 2 learners in this class, but kind of gives a breakdown for those 2 learners of where they fall on the spectrum. And this was a health course. It was a pre-assessment for the first unit of our health course. You can kind of quickly glean how they're performing within PLATO. I wanted to talk a little bit about AccuSess. AccuSess is a relatively new solution for us. It is an adaptive assessment for language arts, reading skills and comprehension, and math. So by adaptive assessment, levels up as a student performs better on the assessment, throttles down. There's kind of back-end algorithms to help manage that process. But the cool thing about AccuSess is what it really does is it gives a grade level indication of that student's skill level. So you may think, mathematics, maybe they're on a 10th grade skill level. You place them in that 10th grade test. They may actually be much more on a 7th grade math level. So it's going to throttle down, kind of indicate that, give you a report on that student's grade level equivalent. But I think what's more important, probably and most powerful, is it's then going to provide automatically a personalized prescription for that student to build their skills to get them to that desired kind of grade range. So a really powerful tool to get that quick kind of dipstick baseline assessment of a student's skills, and then very quickly get them into research-based curriculum to build those skills. So again, really fusing assessment with research-based curriculum, bringing those things together to personalize the instruction, but also make it more efficient. More efficient for the student, not waste their time or disengage them with materials that aren't relevant to maybe their skill gaps, but also for all of you as administrators, staff members. There's often a lot of guesswork that has to go on and manual work around what do I assign to this specific student to personalize instruction for them. AccuSess is just one tool that we provide that helps to do that. And this actually spans up to a college preparatory kind of 12th grade level. So I know this isn't quite as relevant having these elementary grade levels for you guys, but you can kind of see, I may think a student is on a 7th grade level. They take that adaptive assessment, typically about a 30-minute assessment. Could be a little quicker, a little longer, depending on the student, how quickly they progress. In this case, after taking the assessment, realize they're actually on a somewhere between 3rd and 4th grade, so 3.5. You can actually kind of mask how this is reported so that a student isn't turned off by their low score. And we can talk more about that at another time. But then, of course, immediately they get that prescribed curriculum to bring them up to pace. There are additional assessments, as a lot of you know, within our curriculum. So whether it's those module level mastery tests, but with AccuSess, there are also additional pre-tests that a student would see to kind of do a continuous deeper dive on where they are and what curriculum they need. So pretty exciting tool. We see use of this certainly in the adult market, a lot with transient populations, whether K-12 or adult, situations where, again, you need to get that quick assessment, get them into curriculum that's relevant, that's tailored to their needs. A few things that we're focused on in this year. Social, I mentioned our history and kind of background back 60s and 70s of pioneering some social elements. Something we're really looking to get back into to create more tools within PLATO learning environment for all of you to collaborate across programs. So whether it's sharing curriculum from program to program, tools to kind of communicate, facilitate best practices, share ideas. Within the management system, that's something that we're very focused on bringing to all of you here probably at the end of the year. I'm going to continue to work on the breadth of our courses, adding a variety of courses. Innovative delivery, we recognize and have a mobile strategy in place. We recognize whether it's tablet devices, smartphones. One of the challenges we have, along with a lot of other online providers, a lot of our curriculum is flash-based, so it doesn't play nice with iPads. Moving forward, and we've already started this, we're developing all of our curriculum in HTML5. We're going back to a lot of our our legacy curriculum and revamping that, refreshing that, so that technically, no longer will PLATO just be delivered, on a laptop or workstation. Obviously, the market's evolving, and we're certainly going to evolve as well. Excuse me. The other quick thing, we'll never replace the good work that Escalon's doing around professional development, but as I kind of mentioned earlier, we've begun and will continue to evolve some of the on-demand PD tools that are embedded in PLE, so those online tutorials for you as staff, other types of resources that give you that quick kind of training anywhere, any place that you need within the system. So we're definitely focused on that as well. How are we on time?
15.
15. Just going to highlight a couple quick things here. I'm not going to spend too much time walking through all this stuff. In the spring here, added a few new courses. I had mentioned electives as well. Added a new report for AccuSess. That was pretty important. I know there's a couple other desired reports for AccuSess, so we'd love to get those on our roadmap and get those built in. Coming up here in the summer, which I guess we're quickly approaching, probably in July for us. In terms of curriculum, we're going to add a physical education course, probability and statistics. We're going to refresh some of our English curriculum. So for us, kind of a grade level 10 English refresh. Going to see some platform enhancements. So I kind of referred to earlier the ability to share customized learning paths more globally, so not just within your program, but have the ability to actually publish those out to other programs.
Just a question for you. When you
Sure.
say grade level, you're talking about state grade level, right?
I am, and frankly, referring a little bit more to kind of U.S. measurement of grades, grade levels, yes.
So you're also assuming that the states and federal are very similar, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because in Canada, it's different by province. So, English 11 in BC might be different than English 11 in Alberta.
Great point, and I think, going back to customization and kind of the work that Escalon does, I think, and I think you'll see PLATO continue to do more, but I think that's a great point. So we still, a lot of what I refer to is a little bit more shaped by U.S. market and obviously some nuances here.
Yeah, and Sean, one of the real powers of the new platform is that you can take work that's been done in the U.S. and you can pull it and you can completely customize it. So you can use the pieces that are relevant for you. So maybe in grade 10, in the U.S. they teach something in grade 10, we might teach it in grade 9 or grade 8. You can pull stuff, reorganize it, change it, and import your own content. So we want to leverage as much as we can of what they're doing, but we know that everything they're doing isn't relevant to us. And that's where we hope we can help you learn how to do that effectively and help you with that exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. In the fall, continued refresh, again, that HTML5 development for a number of courses, both English courses, algebra courses as well. Going to continue to beef up kind of that online PD that we're able to serve up to you so that in addition, to the good face-to-face professional development you get, you have that online PD as well. We're really importantly, I talked about research-based, looking in the fall to do a validity study, kind of accuracy validity study to really look at AccuSess and ensure that it is reliable, valid assessment. We certainly believe that it is, but want to make sure that we kind of third party take a look at that. QTI, I don't know if you guys use that term up here, but it's a common acronym for formatting for assessment, actually, at least in the U.S., in terms of how assessments are kind of imported into a management system. So some work there around kind of item bank and just adding to the item bank of assessment questions that we have. In the winter, some continued things. Replacing Shockwave, which is a really old, antiquated driver that kind of powers some of our curriculum. Refreshing geometry. less relevant to you, replacing some elementary curriculum. So a lot of exciting things. This item bank flex test I haven't really talked about, but flex test, a tool for us to be able to customize assessments within PLATO. So maybe it's taking an end of course exam for algebra or for something else, customizing that again, tailoring it to your localized needs. You have the ability to do that today with flex test. What you don't have necessarily is an item bank of assessment questions, so we're going to add that item bank so that you can not only create your own items, but you actually can pull from other PLATO items also. And next 2 years, extremely exciting, specific to the adult market and post-secondary, with only being on the clock for 48 hours. I'm still getting my head around our strategy, but the great thing is we're in the midst of actually planning our roadmap strategy for the adult market. So it's a market we're extremely committed to, one that we're going to continue to invest in, and beyond just the kind of roadmap things that I shared today. Hopefully, if I'm here a year from now, there'll be some exciting developments very specific to the adult market, workforce market. Just acquired, we spent $291 million acquiring Archipelago Learning, which is a U.S. company out of Dallas, Texas. They do a lot of work with assessment, a lot of work with test preparation, and really expands the way that we're able to serve the K through adult markets. I guess the piece most relevant from Archipelago is North Star Learning, which I met with the team actually on Wednesday. They do a lot of work around test preparation, kind of online assessment for GED preparation, allied health fields, so they go very deep in a variety of kind of allied health fields to help prepare students for at least typical US-based assessments or tests for those fields. So I think some relevance there. As I get to know that product set better over the coming weeks, definitely will share that with Grant. The idea, I think, will be to really kind of fuse those two product lines to just, again, have continued resources. So this acquisition kind of has rounded us out. We will continue to make acquisitions and very aggressive on just organic product development as well. So I think an exciting future, pretty hectic time for PLATO right now as we kind of bring Archipelago together, and we did acquire a smaller company out of Virginia, more focused on the K-12 market that does a lot with virtual learning, virtual education. We use the terms quite a bit, depth and breadth, but our goal is really to continue to serve all of you well and continue to expand both the depth and breadth of what we can provide. So we're constantly trying to expand that, whether it's building out our course catalog, adding to our item bank of assessments, adding to that functionality. Somebody asked me to talk about this, and I failed to mention earlier. When I talk about depth and breadth, one of the things that we see a lot is typically when we're working with a program, because of our licensing model, because that's available 24/7, the more ways you can think about how can you leverage this throughout the day, throughout the year in different ways, and really maximize that investment. Too often we see PLATO maybe only used 9 to 5, when in fact, it could be serving maybe a different type of program in the evening, or students could be accessing from home. But our commitment is to continue to lead the market in that depth and breadth and provide more flexibility at the end of the day to all of you as clients. Just leave you with a quote. So no one can go back and make a brand new start. Anyone can start from now and make a brand new ending. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, a little bit on the fly presentation for me. I guess my hope is that it gave you a better picture, kind of where PLATO's been, what we're up to, some of the hopefully good work that we're doing to continue to evolve our product sets to continue to support your program. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'd love to open it up for questions. I know we probably just have a couple minutes here, but feedback, suggestions, things you you like, maybe you would like to see improved, questions about the future with PLATO.
You mentioned earlier redeveloping the courseware in HTML5. Does that mean potential compatibility with smartphones and things like that?
Yeah, and that's the big reason, Grant, is, we recognize no longer is the desktop computer, laptop going to be the primary delivery mechanism for a tool like PLATO. So that, iPads, other Android tablets, other types of tablets, smartphones, we're in the process of kind of refining that strategy, but very aggressively going to invest in that HTML5 conversion for that very reason. We're actually looking to developing a couple apps as well that might tie into PLATO around the reporting side for instructors. So definitely going to evolve there and a real important part of what we're doing moving forward.
We're new users of AccuSess, just the past 6 months perhaps, and we're interested in using FlexTest, but didn't. And the issues that you addressed this morning are exactly the ones where we're finding the weakness in AccuSess now around reliability and validity, and the fact that you're addressing those is wonderful. And what you said about FlexTest, when you addressed that, we're right there. So congratulations to PLATO for so quickly responding to the kind of needs that obviously people are feeling with the new product. So good job.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thanks very much.
We talked about online learning and sharing of licenses. In Saskatchewan, the Parkland Vault, they've done away with the correspondence courses in the province. We've developed some of the courses. Our online learners have been asking for that. Is it okay if we use our licenses for them, set up accounts so they can use it too? There is no problem with PLATO, even though we're getting paid for the courses.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Grant respond to that, but from our corporate perspective, we encourage that. I mean, the more ways
to do them.
And we support exactly what Grant said. Yeah, the more the merrier, is the way we look at it. If it can be used in a different way, shared across different programs, we certainly,
And
think
Brad,
that's a
if you
good
got some, can we do this? How would we do this? How we create? Get in touch with Crystal and I, and we'll
Yeah, I know our
brainstorm
online
with you.
people are really interested in setting.
Well, my question was just to do with AccuSess, and Dan more or less answered the same kind of thing. I'm just wondering if, when you're looking at validity, will you be comparing it to some other sort of, say, similar assessments, like maybe the CAP or?
Yeah, and frankly, I wish I could say we have a Canadian exam that will benchmark it against, or kind of look at, it'll probably be a US-based national exam, at least to start, to kind of build out that important psychometric data to make sure that, there's confidence in the tool, so on and so forth. And, I failed to mention, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's a little less relevant. We do have some other prescriptive assessment products. They are a little bit more tailored towards the K-12 market around benchmark assessments, so the ability to kind of pre, mid, and post. Again, a little bit more US aligned. That's an area I could see, for example, there may be some opportunity to kind of contextualize that more for Canada to make it relevant using the products called test packs, and then using that flex test to adapt some of those, resequence them, and that's just a thought maybe down the road for the future. Other questions? Well, once again, really appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you this morning. Quick trip into Vancouver, unfortunately long trip back to Massachusetts, but great to meet many of you, and look forward to seeing you all again, and continuing to work with Escalon and Grant to move the partnership forward, and hope you all have a great rest of the event, great weekend as well. Thank you.
Hold on a second here, I've got an announcement to make as well, but the first thing is I would like to thank you so much for coming up.
Thank you.
Presenting to our group. My pleasure. It's just a little,
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much.
one announcement today, I just want to do a little bit of a survey. One of our presenters, Shelby Desjardins, is going to be talking about cooking up success, integrating essential skills in the culinary arts. Something's come up, you can't make the presentation today. Was there anybody who was really wanting to see that? Because if there is, Frankie has volunteered to deliver it, because she was working with him in that program and can deliver the presentation. But if not, there's certainly other options for it. Anybody really wanted to see that today? Okay, so Cooking Up Success in Suite 206 immediately followed this and is officially canceled. And we will be getting Shelby's presentation and posting it to the website anyway. We're going to take a 15-minute break now, and then back in this room, the Aboriginal Skills Group will be presenting, and in 207, Dan Essery will be repeating his presentation on 7 generations from yesterday afternoon. And just as a reminder, then we'll have a break at 10:45, and then as a reminder to come back to this room afterwards, and we'll wrap up, we'll do the draws. Everybody bring your evaluation forms, don't forget your evaluation forms. Bring your evaluation forms if you're going to be eligible for the draws this afternoon. Okay, thank you very much.